Alright, so we lost the stream there for a second. So let me just make sure this stream's going up strong now. YouTube still doesn't have it, so give it a minute. YouTube does have it now, there we go. Just make sure YouTube has it. I don't know what that was. I'm getting yellow and green flashes from OBS over here. I don't know if it's my network. It rates strong too. But YouTube is complaining. Give me 1 second here. Sorry about this. Just want to make sure that I get this all set up correctly. There it is. Not sure what happened there, but let me just make sure YouTube is updated correctly. Alright, so YouTube does look like it's updated correctly now. Although, my restream says I'm good, but the stream's not working on this end here. What does YouTube control room say? Sorry about that. Give me 1 sec. Oh, the joys of live streaming. We went through what, 4 hours of uninterrupted live stream last night, and first 5 minutes of this one, or first 10 minutes of this one, we get a drop. So, all right. So it says it's good. Twitch looks good. YouTube looks good. Restream looks good. All right. So you guys can hear me. I got the chat going too. Yep, chat's going. So I don't know where we dropped off 100%, but just real quick, the thermistor cable was just plugged into the wrong place. In my haste, being tired last night, I just skipped that completely. So we can move on from that. So with the pre-flight check, one of the first things it has you do is it has you move all the extruder all the way off to the left side. So I'm going to slowly move it over. It does state that from now on, you don't want to move it by hand, because it does kind of act like when you're moving it by hand, the motors kind of act as like a little mini generator. So we're going to pull, and to Flavorist Tech's great advice, which you should always do this anyway whenever you're doing this, and the instructions do say it as well, that you want to make sure and put this down. Piece of paper down so that you can see if it's actually catching onto the bed. Before you damage the bed, the paper will pull on with it. So we're going to do a couple different tests here, but the first one is we're going to get and I believe I got the pin to probe nice and aligned yesterday. Sorry if my head's like right in the way of the printer, of course it is. So we'll get this down. I get this down to touching the bed by twisting these two. And basically what it's having you do, it's having you align your x-axis here as best as possible by hand before you go in and do it with the machine. So I'm going to slide this over to the right. Kind of stop here in the middle, and I see that it's not touching the bed anymore. I'll push that down a little bit. You can see I'm too low now, so I'm going to pick it back up. Put that down just a tiny bit. Too low there. Put it back down to where it's again. There we go. All right, so now we did that pre-play check. So from here, you know, it references watch the video, commonly mistakes, and then the quick guide from the 3D printing manual. So I know that Flavors and I are kind of going back and forth just a minute with, you know, when do we put the spring steel sheet on. So I didn't find a place that said it until I read through in detail a little bit more into the 3D printing manual. So skipping all the way to section 6.3.5, calibrate XYZ on the kit only. It does state in here the purpose of the XYZ calibration routine is to measure the skew of the XYZ axis. Find the position of all 4 of the calibration points. You can run the XYZ calibration from the calibration menu on the LCD panel. This should not be necessary on assembled printers because they're factory calibrated. Place a sheet of regular office paper like we did, for example, on the check sheet, and then the Penda probe. We've already got to what the instructions say with the proper height with the zip tie method. The nodule must not touch the print surface or deflect the bed at any means. If everything went correctly, continue with the calibration process. So I believe that we're good there. So initialization routine performs a series of measurements in 3 rounds. In the first round, with the steel sheet, without the steel sheet installed, in bold right there, so you can see it. I'll highlight it without the steel sheet installed. That highlighted weird. 4 sensor points on the print bed are searched for carefully, so as not to touch the print bed with the nozzle. In the second round, the point locations are being improved. In the last round, with the steel sheet on, the height above the 9 sensor points is measured and stored in non-volatile memory for reference. This finishes the Z-axis calibration. So when I plug it in, it should have us walk through the wizard and do this for us. And we're going to go through 2 sets without the steel sheet installed, and then we're going to go through the last one with the steel sheet installed. So there's my answer right there. So now we're going to run through the rest of the wizard. So I'm going to go ahead and switch away from the instructions because we don't need those. Actually, I am going to switch away from them just for right now. I'm going to leave them up for just a second because I'm actually going to do something else first. We're going to update the firmware on this first. So I'm actually going to plug this in now. So, I realized my power cable wasn't long enough. There we go. All right. So we got power to it. Pop it on. Both fans powered up. That's beautiful. All right. Printer has not been calibrated. First step, section calibration flow. Printer's not been calibrated yet. Please follow the manual chapter. First steps, calibration flow. So what we need to do is go down to calibration, and we're going to run, we're actually not going to do that. Why do I keep forgetting this? So let's do the firmware upgrade. So in order to do the firmware upgrade, you need to go to the Prusa website, which I thought I had up, so I don't. So let's go and get it here. So if you go to www.prusa3d.com, come to this page here, download drivers and firmware, go ahead and click that link right there. Very top one's the original Prusa i3 MK3 firmware, drivers and app, and the handbooks. The handbook's what I had opened earlier. Drivers and apps I've already installed, and then the firmware 3.5.1. And if I actually go down to support here, and look, I'm at 3.1.1, so they've already had a couple of revisions. I click the download link that you see right here, and then of course you have any of the other older printers, you'll see all of them right here. But I've already downloaded this firmware, and the way you update the firmware now is you do it in the Slick 3R Prusa edition, which I have open now. Let me pull this down so you can see the entire window. There we go. And the way you do it is you first of all plug the printer in via the USB cable. So I went ahead and plugged in this USB cable to my computer, and I'm going to plug in the USB cable to the INSI board. I'm going to kind of route this wire around so it doesn't get in the way of the heat bed. Might need to put something on it there. There we go. So, oh, my stream is going red again. Oh, no, went back to green. Anyway, all right, so if it drops out again, I apologize in advance. So I know I'm talking through the filament holder here. So now that I have it plugged in, I can now go to configuration, and then down here at the bottom of the configuration menu, you'll see flash printer firmware. It automatically recognizes the serial port, the original Prusa i3 MK3 on COM3. So now I need to browse in for the firmware. So right here it says Prusa 3D firmware MK3. So make sure you have the right version. And then 351. So that's the latest version. If we go back to the website right there, 3.5.1, you can see that's the latest version. So I'm going to go ahead and select that it's a .hex file. We open it. And it says status is ready. We can look at advanced outputs. So I just like to kind of look at this stuff. It's fun. So I'm going to go ahead and hit flash. Flashing its progress. Most of it flashes through so fast you can't read it. So writing. Sending. So one of the things I thought about last night while this is still doing it, I don't know how much longer this is going to take, is I didn't realize until I was going to bed last night, I was thinking electronics, I didn't install any end stops on this machine. So when I got up this morning, I was a little curious. I went through reading through a bunch of stuff in the forums and everything, and come to find out that you don't need any end stops with the Trimatic drivers that Flavors and I were talking about last night, and the feedback that they get. The ENC port can actually figure out when the motors are feeling resistance by the voltage drop, and so it knows when it's run its course on its path. So it can feel when either of the motors is, out of, to the right side with the X or the left side with the X, or when it's gone all the way up on the Z axis. So that's kind of how it homes. So it's fantastic. Oh, so perfect. Now we've got the new firmware flashed on there. So that was easy, right? Didn't take very long. So now that we've got that done, we can go and shrink that out of the way there.